River is a non-binary, autistic cyclist and unicyclist passionate about creating inclusive cycling spaces. As a former board member of Bike Ottawa, like myself, and current co-organizer of Queer Bike Club Ottawa, they advocate for safer cycling infrastructure and a more equitable cycling experience for all. Their cycling journey from urban commutes to bikepacking and unipacking adventures has been instrumental in their personal growth, helping them navigate disability, build community, and overcome challenges.
I don't have a lovely slideshow, but we can all admire the unicycle. So, as I said, hi there. My name's River. I use she, they pronouns. I'm non-binary. For those of you who may not have met someone who's non-binary before, it's like if a man and a woman have a baby. I'm going to go over today the story about how bikes have impacted my 20s, the fires I've ridden through, and the places they have brought me. I like to joke that bikes are my entire personality, from my volunteering to being a shop-trained bike mechanic, to just falling in love with rides. It is my way that I fall in love with Ottawa as a city. I've lived here since 2002. I grew up in Orleans and went away for university thinking our city sucked. Turns out playing video games in my mom's basement sucked. But they have always been magic to me since I've gotten into them. They are instrumental to so many things in my life. For those of you who may not be as familiar with autism, there's something called a special interest, and it's something that you obsess over. So for me, that thing is bikes, and recently, unicycling. I got into cycling in university for very practical reasons. I went to university in Thunder Bay, and the transit system there makes OC Transpo look like a German train station. As someone who comes from a family with substance abuse issues too, it was just an easy way to get around. If I was not doing exercise, I'd want to drink or do drugs. So it was a good activity for me to start replacing that. And as I got a bit older, I fell in love with day rides. I started tinkering with bikes more. The first time I did a repair myself was because I went to a bike shop and said, "Could you repair a flat for me?" I said, "It's going to be $50, and the tools were $20, and my ego said I could do this for a hell of a lot cheaper." But I love unicycles, I love folding bikes, and just having crazy builds. One of the first ones I did actually was a project of mine where I took a BMX and turned it into a road bike. I highly recommend it. Doing an 80K ride on it without a bike fit though, great way to have sore kneecaps. But even my unicycles, I have this one and another one that you'd see me riding around, and they are by no means practical. And in fairness, I was left unsupervised with a credit card. But as I got later into my 20s, I started discovering longer rides and bikepacking as a way to challenge myself, as a way to build myself up and say, I can do hard things. For me, it's a way of hitting my accelerator. And I had always pushed myself fairly hard, whether it was university, whether it was high school, whether it was my early career. And bikepacking was no exception to that. Unicycling I started doing just at the turn of COVID. I used to do 30K round trip from Orleans into work each day. And this seemed like a good way to exercise when we couldn't go within 5K of the house. But there's a trap that I think a lot of us in the cycling community can fall into. A friend of mine will jokingly say, bigger number, better person. Whether it's Strava or your top speed or everything, it's very easy to fall into that mentality, and there it is addictive. Because that first 100K ride you do, that first 160K ride you do, your first century, you go over 30 kilometers an hour on a BMX turned into a road bike. It's magical. But especially even doing unipacking trips. I don't recommend unicycling 200 kilometers in one weekend. It is exhausting, very fun though. But it taught me to do hard things. It taught me that I am tougher than I think I am. It taught me that I can do things I did not think I could do previously. And my first 2 seasons of bikepacking in 2022 and 23 was a lot of the same. I did my first 117K ride. I started doing wild camping. I started doing so many adventures. And bikepacking for me has a very deep spiritual and personal significance. These are the trips that let me say, these are the new things I can do. these are how I can push myself, but it gets very exhausting. And after 2 seasons of that, when I realized that I was planning trips by how many kilometers I wanted to do in a year, or the destinations I wanted to see, I wasn't enjoying the trips as much. In 2023, my most exciting trip, for those of you who have done the Griffith Highlands loop, we did the short version of it. We did 50 kilometers, and though I had done 200K rides that season and everything, it was the 50K trip. That is the one that I remember the most that season. It also coincided with a lot of other things, where I was hitting the accelerator in quite a few places in life, and as you can tell by how sparkly I am, I was starting to discover, last year specifically, life turned quite different. I was in a very difficult marriage with a partner who was straight. I was in a very difficult marriage with a partner who was straight. I started to learn that I was non-binary. I wanted to start presenting in different ways, as well as starting to realize that I was autistic, as well as realizing I had ADHD at the same time. Though I do not recommend transitioning, getting diagnosed, and getting divorced all in the same year, it was definitely exhausting. I also like to joke that being born in Florida, nothing on me came standard, which is why unicycling everywhere and being autistic. But last year was extremely hard. There is not a manual that comes when you get diagnosed with autism. There is not a manual that comes with how to be non-binary. When everything in our society is in 2 boxes, when you are in the middle, it is difficult to figure out. And as someone who already has issues with social cues and navigating various things like that, to the bike auto friends in the room, they have seen the journey and everything that went through it. But I set myself a goal as a New Year's resolution for 2024. It's what I was calling tiny adventures. Not doing 100K trips, but doing more of the 50K trips. And at the start of last year, when I did not have the energy to go out on my bike ride and do 80K rides anymore, tiny adventures. Started falling in love with taking the smaller unicycle, going on 20K rides, and starting to find community. The last time I was in for a community was in university, and 7 years in a straight relationship. It wasn't a space I'd entered in. And I started to help organizing the Queer Bike Club Ottawa, especially as someone who's American and Canadian and seeing everything going on with my community right now. It is my way to help give back to the world, to help create some space for joy. But the smaller trips came with also some of the happiest memories of a dark year. Same Griffith Highlands loop route. I did it again with a friend last year, and we ended a bit early. And the trail magic that we were granted with was a couple took us in and said, "Hey, do you want to come sit by our campfire?" They had 2 very fluffy dogs we were allowed to pet. And as someone who's been watching way too many van life and homesteading videos, they were doing the exact same thing just up the road. They were able to convince me doing it in Canadian winters, not as much fun. But by doing these smaller trips, by rebuilding every system of my life, whether it's how I present to the world or the systems I manage my life and just how I get about my day-to-day, I was suddenly having some of the happiest times of my life too. And coincidentally, it let me go on one of my longest bikepacking trips to date. In the September long weekend last year, I set out with 2 friends and we were going to do a 330K gravel ride. It is the longest trip I had done to date, still the longest trip I've done, but I was trying to put into place the accommodations I was making to myself. Instead of camping, we're going to be in hotels. Instead of taking a unicycle, I was going to take an e-bike. A little bit easier. But I still remember the second day of the trip thinking, why am I doing this? This sucks. And then the third day riding home and getting to my door and just saying, I can do this. That all of the changes I was making, the ways in which I present myself, the ways in which I was accommodating how spicy my brain likes to be, it wasn't exactly where I thought I'd be at 29, but it's been a beautiful place to be. I'm still adapting to it. It's been a lot of change. As someone who grew up as this color with the boy model and being from a well-off family, I am used to having quite a bit of privilege in my life. adapting to what it means to have 2 neurodevelopmental disabilities and being a queer person where the world does not treat me the same anymore has been eye-opening. When you are socialized to be male and you are walking home in a dress with a face full of makeup, you're not taught that you might be followed home, and presenting this way means that there are certain dangers now. Again, still have a lot of privilege where I don't have to do as much as other people in my community face, but it is still a change. But as of today, I have been feeling more like myself than I think I've historically ever done in my life. I actually just got my legal name change, and just before today went to Service Ontario and got my new driver's license and everything. Back in November, I got my official autism diagnosis, and at the start of this month, I got signed divorce papers. I'm now in a place in my life where I feel beautiful and confident in my skin for the first time. I can't describe to you what it's like to feel uncomfortable in your skin for 26 years, but when it's your normal, your everyday, you don't know anything different. But as you can tell, I have a little bit of a color scheme, and it's the unicycles and the bikes have gotten me through some very hard times this year. One of the ones that I wanted to share too is that this is actually an assistive device for me. I lovingly refer to it as my emotional support unicycle. One of the big conditions with autism is that you tend to not do well in new spaces. So I made sure to get my psychologist to diagnose me with what's called transitional objects. They are things that you go into new spaces. And of all the not fun parts that come with autism, it's not something I recommend. But walking into a space and having someone say you can't bring a bike in there, looking at them dead in their eyes and saying this is an assistive device, and just seeing the gears go in their head is quite lovely. There's still going to be some challenges, but after all the storms of last year having started past and having celebrated my 29th birthday on December 18th, I'm starting to plan trips for this year. We're starting with small ones. We're going to still plan some big trips, but we're going to make some changes to make sure that I'm not exhausting myself, that it's continuing the theme of learning my marathon pace, not my sprint pace. And thank you very much for your time.